Finally, the Mariners win a series. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Series Now episode of the Seattle Baseline Podcast. My name is Julian Smith, and I'm with Alex Hong. After the All-Star break, first game, I see the comments after the first game. Oh, we just lost, shutout loss, looks bad. I hope we can win the series. I guess the first game doesn't tell the whole story, so I am so happy that that's the case, and I'm sure you are too, Alex.
Yeah, after that first game, I was like, it might be an overreaction because it is one game, but I was losing faith. I was like, oh, nothing's changed, right? Mariners shutouts, terrible performance, weren't even against their ace. It was just really, really bad. And then the second game looked like it was going to go that way again, and I was like, oh, well, here we go again. Gonna have to go back on this podcast and be like, wow, the Mariners are hopeless. They gotta sell. And Cole Young is a difference maker. So yeah, pretty good stuff there. Yeah, I don't know. It was quite kind of a roller coaster, I'd say. And then I'd say that Cole Young homer he had in the second game really changed the momentum in the series because it kind of went from a San Francisco Giants domination in the first like half of the series, and then ever since the Cole Young home run, it was kind of a Mariners domination.
Yeah, and I think momentum is a really big thing. Not just in baseball, but like all sports. When you have the momentum, like remember the Seahawks had that one punt return with Rashid Shaheed, and then all of a sudden they beat the Rams out of it on a game that
That's the
they
Christmas
looked
game,
like,
I think.
yeah, they
Yeah.
they didn't even look like they were going to win the game. I feel like in all sports, momentum comes from seeing someone on your team succeed, seeing that they're able to make something out of something that like clearly wasn't there. And Cole Young did that. Cole Young took a game that was the Mariners scored zero until Cole Young hit that homer, and he said, "Just watch me do my thing." And he did that. Next thing we know, we score another run, we win that game, and then the next game, Cole Young hits another homer, Luke Raley hits a homer, and the Mariners win the series. I think that having this momentum going into this next series against the Reds, we'll talk about that one soon. I think is a massive, massive deal for the Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows how weird sports can be sometimes, right? It's not like a probability-based sport. Well, that's the thing about like analytics, right? Analytics, might be makes these weird claims kind of like that you wouldn't naturally think, like, oh, it's naturally good to have, like third time through the order, for example, is often bad, right? That's kind of a pretty big statistic. There's like other statistics a lot of managers follow, but which is why I think managers need to combine like both analytics and like how they feel, because if a pitcher is dealing, right, and he's like mowing down the first and second time through the order, you don't take him out. This is like a Blake Snell 2020 reference. You don't just take him out, you know, third time through the order just because, oh, statistics say so, right? You kind of just have to watch the game. And it kind of goes with the momentum point you're making, where sports is really not just a probability game. It's more of like, it's these weird things like, oh wow, like one thing happens and hits keep happening after that, right? And it's really big deal with the momentum shifts. It really, it's really amazing how that works in sports, to be honest.
And I think with Cole Young, it's interesting because his stats say used to say otherwise until he hit those two homers. His stats weren't as good as I thought he was playing, or maybe you guys thought he was playing too. The stat that was up for him was the runners in scoring position. The other stats, he was average to below average, and all of a sudden he comes out, he shows that he can hit home runs with runners in scoring position, and now his stats are much higher than they used to be. I think that Cole Young has a mental like has a mental ability to focus when the moment really matters, and if he can channel that the way that he has in the last couple of games, in the games where maybe the home run doesn't um maybe you don't need to hit the home run as much. You can channel that every game, every at bat. I think Cole Young is going to continue to be one of our best hitters because clearly in runners in scoring position, he's been good, and his mental state when it comes to that, his focus is high.
Yeah, and Cole Young's a warrior. He's been playing literally I think he's played every single game for the Mariners this season, right? He's been a rock star out there, and he's really changed from last year. It really shows how one offseason can really improve a player, right? You know, he still has some problems, right? Like he doesn't, I think he still needs to walk a little more. He does strike out a decent amount, but his power's up, right? His defense, especially at the start of the year, was really, really good, right? And then it's a pretty good contact hitter too. So there's a lot of good things I see from Cole Young. It's a massive improvement from last year. Remember, last year we basically benched him in the playoffs. Now he's our guy who's playing every single day. We need him out there. And he's been really valuable. I look at the stats, I'm like, wow, I think like Cole Young's been a little better than this. And he honestly, in my opinion, he has been a little better. Maybe it's because he had kind of a rough stretch at one point in the year, but he's turning it on now. It's really, really good, I think.
Yeah, and he plays in the three spot where like that's that's one of your most important spots. I think leadoff, cleanup, those two are the most important. And then you've got the three spot, which is like kind of sitting in the middle there. And then the two spot is like that's the guy that you want behind your leadoff guy. That's like if the leadoff guy gets on base with two outs, you want the second guy to get the home run. But the third guy is also the guy that you rely on. Cole Young has been exceptional there. And I think the situational awareness that he has also translates to the guy that plays in front of him in Julio Rodriguez. I think Julio Rodriguez this year has taken a massive leap from what I thought was his performance last year to this year. Julio Rodriguez, the part that really stands out to me is the plate discipline. And in the past few episodes, I've talked about, hey, there are two types of walks. There's the free base and then there's the forced walk. And I think Julio Rodriguez in this series has showed us exactly what it means to force a walk. He goes in the first inning, 7 pitches. He strikes out swinging to a fastball that's high. If he doesn't swing at that, that's a walk. He was fouling off pitches. Almost every strike that Julio Rodriguez had in the final game against the Giants with Robbie Ray is a foul ball. It's not just swinging strike or caught looking. It's a foul ball. And that's how you force the pitcher to pitch your way because in the second at bat, in the bottom of the third, now you can see how Julio Rodriguez takes two foul balls, 0 and 2, fouls off the next pitch, and then two balls, looks at them, doesn't flinch, fouls the next one off, two more balls, walks. That is the epitome of a forced walk. I think that's where I see Julio Rodriguez really improve, and the power isn't there yet. But I think the plate discipline is there. He's seeing the ball exceptionally well, and the power. It's just a matter of time. I think in the next two series, he will jump in terms of power. He's going to start hitting home runs.
Yeah, it's interesting because his power is kind of weak this year, and it's mostly against left-handed or against right-handed pitching that the power isn't there. His power actually is pretty good, I'd say. He has over a 500 slug against lefties, but he has a 388 slug against righties. So his slugging is not as good against the right-handed pitching. Although his batting average is roughly similar for both. So it's kind of the Dom Canzone effect to where
Mm.
Dom Canzone against lefties can hit for average, he just doesn't have power. But Julio's a guy who still usually has power against both sides of the plate. So I feel like it's something that's just gonna be coming with Julio. And another thing I like about Julio, like you said, with the walks, right? I completely agree with you. His strikeout rate is the lowest it's ever been. His walk rate is also up this year. It's the I believe it's the highest it's ever been. Yeah, it is the highest it's ever been for his walk percentage. So he's been a lot more, that's been a problem with him, right? He's swinging such stuff too much outside the zone. He has too many. How many times have we seen in the past three pitch strikeouts from Julio? Just complete terrible, like terrible at bats, right? And it's a lot better. And I remember when we watched a game live, Julian, you talked to me. We were talking to the people next to us about how Julio's had a lot better plate discipline this year and how he's not just swinging at everything, right? And it's really, really improves because the importance of prolonging an at bat is for so many reasons is important, like you said, right? More likely to draw a walk, will tire out the pitcher, can get into his head even, right? The pitcher's head, like, oh, I can't even throw this anymore, and they might throw a more riskier pitch because of that, right? So there's so many benefits to why. So it's very, very important for him to improve that in his game.
Yeah, and I think Alex, it's all the things you just mentioned. I think I totally agree with you in what you just said. It's the fact that Robbie Ray had to throw pitches that were uncomfortable for him, maybe pitches he never wants to throw in an at bat. It's the fact that Julio Rodriguez in his first three at bats had 20 pitches. And so when a pitcher throws a quality start, usually if a pitcher goes 90 pitches, let's say, you have 15 pitches each inning for 6 innings. That's what you like. That's efficient. More efficient would be 7 innings, but if you want to go for efficiency, it's 15 pitches per inning for 6 innings straight. Julio Rodriguez in his at bats, he in his plate appearances, he had 20 pitches in the first three plate appearances he had against Robbie Ray. That means that he's doing exactly what you said. He's tiring out Robbie Ray. He's forcing him to throw 5 more pitches than he should be. And he took a walk in one of those plate appearances. That means that he is costing Robbie Ray more pitches, maybe 25 pitches, depending on what the next batter does. And when when I see that Robbie Ray only went 4 innings, I think a massive part of that is Julio Rodriguez. Julio Rodriguez costed Robbie Ray innings that he could have pitched because he made him go 20 to 25 pitches in by himself. I think that that's what separates Julio this year from last year. And I think Alex, you're exactly right. The fact that he's been doing that is the biggest improvement he could have made.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I'm not like the biggest fan of Robbie Ray. I don't think most Mariners fans are, especially after 2022 ALDS Game 1. I think everyone remembers what happened there, right? And another thing that's important, right, is we kicked out Robbie Ray in the fourth inning. Like, statistically, he wasn't even that bad, right? He only gave up 1 run, and in the end, that's kind of like most important thing. How many runs did you give up, right? But he only won 4 innings. So then there, it's sets up their bullpen pretty bad to where, they kind of have to sack that game. And it sucks that it was at the end of the series because, destroying a team's bullpen at the first game, it is detrimental for them for the rest of the series. So that's something we need to do better at, not just get destroyed in the first game. First game, we were so bad. Basically, what I don't even remember the guy's name, like Landon Raup, or I
Yeah.
never really even heard of this guy, but he was mowing us down. He went 7 innings, no earned runs. So he basically did anything he wanted against us. It was a disastrous performance. And it set their bullpen well because they didn't even have to throw their good guys in, right? So they had the advantage going into second, third game. But Cole Young decided to make a difference on that. We had some pretty good starts on our own. I don't even think we talked about it yet. Bryce Miller didn't have the best start. Statistically, it wasn't that bad, but he wasn't as sharp as he usually is. Wu had a good start on at home as per usual, and then Gilbert had another good start with a lot of strikeouts as well.
Yeah. And the Mariners are going to stay in T-Mobile Park for this next upcoming series against the Cincinnati Reds. And seeing that Cole Young is putting up the numbers that he's putting up against with runners in scoring position and Julio Rodriguez playing the way that he is. Julio's influence is going to be massive when it comes down to it because his ability to walk, take pitches, and foul pitches off is going to boost the confidence in the rest of the lineup. So I'm hoping that this next Cincinnati series is going to be the same because we're facing a guy that's probably in the running for a National League Cy Young in Chase Burns right now. And if the Mariners can capitalize on this guy, that's going to build the confidence the same way that they beat Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens last year. If the Mariners can finally beat one of these elite pitchers, it's going to be a huge mental boost for the Mariners going forward.
Mhm. Definitely. With the Reds series coming up, right? It's very interesting because they're in a very tough division right now. They're below 500, worse than the Mariners, but I think they've had a harder time because they've been in a really good division. This division at one point had everyone over a 500 record for a while. So, I'm very impressed with how this division's played out. Primarily because I'm not surprised that the Brewers and the Cubs are at top, but I think a lot of people are surprised the Pirates were good this year, right? And it's not even because Paul Skeens has a 0 ERA, right? Their team has just been a lot better, which has been pretty surprising. And the Cardinals, not even too bad. I thought they were really not going to be good this year. So the Reds are kind of like the odd ones out, I feel like, kind of. But, they got some problems on their own. They have some studs, but they got some problems. I think everyone knows of Ellie De La Cruz. He's having more of a, I'd say, well-rounded year, right? If you think about this guy, you usually think about him a few years ago. Oh, wow, the year he had like 67 steals, which was absolutely ridiculous, right? But now this year he has 14 steals and 6 caught. So he's actually been quite bad. This is actually pretty bad. But his OPS is higher than ever, 859 OPS, a 506 slug. That's pretty insane. He's been doing some damage with the bat in terms of power. So I honestly think he's just been a better overall player, and his defensive metrics have been better this year as well. So he's been just a lot more of a better overall player, which I think is actually rather a good thing. I don't think, there's been lots of problems with Ellie, even though he's kind of like that type of player, right? He had that year he led the year league in stealing. He also led the league in caught stealing, and he led the league in strikeouts. So there's a lot of like issues with Ellie, but I think he's been fixing it, and this is actually I think the better for him. I don't think he needs to get that many steals if he has all these other problems.
Yeah, I think you just talked about well-rounded. Ellie De La Cruz is probably the most well-rounded player on the Reds roster. Most of these guys are power hitters. Sal Stewart, guy that's honestly taken off this year. This is the year that he's really blossomed. And JJ Bleday, we've seen him a lot on the Athletics. I think these two are their power hitters, they're home run guys. And then you've got Ellie De La Cruz, you just mentioned him. He's been the average and power guy. So that's the Reds have a lot of power, kind of similar to how the Mariners like to play baseball. A lot of you take a walk. Well, now the next guy's gonna try to hit a home run. Eugenio Suarez. They have good vibes only all year so far, even though they're under 500. And I think with the stadium that they play in, Suarez is a massive fit for them, and that's that's gonna be a huge part in their second half. He hasn't been good up so far this year, but in the last 7 games, he's really turned it around. He's had around a 900 OPS in the last 7 games, and Eugenio Suarez has been starting to turn it around. So the Mariners, I don't think that since we're playing in T-Mobile Park, there's much to worry about. But when it comes down to power, it can really shift a game the same way that Cole Young's home run completely shifted the momentum for us in the previous series.
Yeah, good amount of former Mariners in this series, right? Castillo, he was part of that trade with Noel V. Marte. Speaking of which, Noel V. Marte, he had a pretty decent year last year, not very good this year, so I guess he kind of fell off. It's been a few years since he's been in the majors, so maybe he's just not cut out for it. Uh, Suarez, like you mentioned, at least with Suarez, we're playing in T-Mobile where Suarez has been like last year he was so bad. I don't, it's actually astounding the home and away splits for Suarez. It's like something I've never even seen before last year. He wasn't as bad at home when he played with us back when he a few years ago, but last year when we got him the deadline, he was just awful at home. So hopefully that continues for that sake in this series, right? So and then my man South Stewart, you mentioned I have him in fantasy, so he's been really killing it for me. So I really like that. And he's really young too. They got a lot of good young pieces, right? This was a rebuilding Reds team that wasn't, as good in the past, and they're getting it together. I think there might be a few years away, I'd say, but they definitely got a lot of potential, right? And there's a guy we haven't even mentioned yet who also is really young and that is their ace in Chase Burns. Do you have That's the guy we definitely need to talk about because I could just summarize the rest of their pitching staff so far. Not too good, right? No one is under a 4 ERA starting pitching wise except for Chase Burns, who's been really, really good. And I know no one cares about win losses anymore, but he's 11-1, which is actually really impressive. And he has a 2.54 ERA. So we got to watch out for this guy because he's against Luis Castillo, and just based off that matchup, it looks like we're losing that game. But Julian, do you have any thoughts on how Chase Burns has been this year?
Yeah. When I think of Chase Burns, when I watch Chase Burns play, he's like a Bryce Miller when he was just drafted by the Mariners. A massive slider and fastball guy. That those were the only pitches that Bryce Miller threw predominantly. And he had that riding fastball and the good breaking slider. That's kind of what Chase Burns does, but his fastball is faster and his slider is way faster. I think he has a lot more raw power than most of the pitchers in the league. His fastball velocity is in the 93rd percentile, and he plays like a closer, but he plays like a closer for 7 innings. And he does have the changeup and the curveball, but he only uses that 7% of the time. He uses the other two pitches, the fastball and the slider, 93%. So those are the two pitches that we need to watch out for. And the fastball comes at more than 50% of the time. So if the hitters can sit fastball and accept swinging and missing at a slider in trying to smash a home run out of the fastball, I think the Mariners can win this series, especially with the way that Chase Burns throws. I think that there is Chase Burns has a massive, massive strong suit in the way that his pitches break. But at the end of the day, having two pitches that he constantly relies on makes him vulnerable to strategy. And I think the Mariners can really adopt a good strategy to beat Chase Burns here.
Yeah, and he just got extended actually a few days ago, which is pretty cool. He made the All-Star game, so good for him. And you mentioned a good point. I've never seen a starter who basically only throws two pitches who's been this dominant, right? Usually people who can only throw two pitches are just set up for the bullpen. This is really impressive what he's doing. He gets so much swing and miss that it's kind of his slider is so devastating. If you see it, the drop is insane on that pitch. So that's something we definitely need to look out for. And that could be detrimental against a team like the Mariners who likes to strike out against a pitcher who's pretty good at getting strikeouts. This is going to be a very tough matchup. We got to be very patient with them, I think. And we got to try to, get that pitch count up because that's going to be something that's detrimental. This is definitely a pitcher we got to worry about, despite only having two pitches. I think we could rely more on a strategy of maybe we try to sit on a pitch, right? He throws his fastball most of the time, but like I said, he basically only throws two pitches, right? I think we kind of have to play a smarter strategy against him. I think if we go up there trying to guess, then usually that doesn't work no matter the pitcher, but it's really not going to work with this guy. So, you know, pretty interesting. He's been really good, and I'm actually kind of excited to see him play. Not gonna lie, excited to see him pitch.
Yeah, and this is one of the most important series that the Mariners are going to play this year because of the series that's coming afterwards, and that's the Texas Rangers series. So the Mariners want to take the momentum in this series, maybe even sweeping the Reds, who have been struggling all year. and then taking that momentum straight to the Rangers series and beating them. That's what the Mariners want to do right now in order to win the American League West crown. And it's going to set them up really well for the trade deadline. Let us know what you think. I think that the Mariners are in a actually coming back to a good spot. I think the Mariners have a good chance of beating the Reds in this series. I think the Mariners can go and take that momentum to the Rangers series. Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our beautiful faces on YouTube. Check out our Instagram. And as always, go Mariners.
Go Mariners.